So for step 34, the front body mount unit. Well, you can see here we've got our body mounts that have to fit onto this piece, which is actually designed to look like it's an engine. Kind of interesting. And then, of course, we've got to put together all of the steering arm links and suspension links with the ball connectors, etc. And it's all going to fit together like this. These are going to be the hardest parts, is actually getting the screw into both ends of those connectors. And then we're going to be putting ball bearings into this steering setup, which I think is great. A lot of Tamiya kits don't use ball bearings for this bit, and it's usually just plastic pieces. So it's nice to be able to replace these plastic bushings with an actual set of full ball bearings. So there are all of the pieces that we're going to need for this step, and there is all of the hardware. So I'll set this up and let's put this together. So I think what we'll do is let's get this out of the way. So you can see here both these pieces are M5s. It's not going to matter which way they go. You can see that on the underside how that's going to fit, and this is going around that protrusion piece right there, so you know it's going to fit, and the screws come in from the top. So let's get these in place. Now these are the soft plastic, so again you don't want to over tighten because you don't want to strip anything out. And again on the other side, let's grab our screw. And you can tell when you get to the end, but I do just sort of give it a one extra turn. But there you go. There is our front body mount post piece ready to go for everything else. So that part is done. So now let's take this piece here and get our ball joints in place. So again, I like to put the ball connector into the box wrench. You can tell that it's going to fit on this side. So I'm going to start spinning that in, make sure it's going in level, which you can see that it is. So we'll get those attached. And because this is going into hard plastic, once you've gotten to the end, you're going to know. So now the same thing again on the other side. I'm going to use the box wrench, put that in, and then go in from the top. And again, because you're using this for leverage, it should go in fairly level. So it's just a matter of screwing this into the end. Just like that. And again, once you get to the end, you're going to know that you're at the end because it's just going to grab. The hard plastic means it's just going to be a hard stop. There we go. So that's that part in place. So now the thing that we're going to do is we're going to work on these pieces, which is kind of the harder or the hardest part about this step, because often these don't go in very easily. Now they're saying to take both pieces, get them started on either end, and you're going to twist. So each end is going to be screwed in at the same time. But you've got to try and get these level so that they're not, so that they go in correctly. And you can see that I'm not. So I'm kind of like pushing on it a little bit so that you can see that you've got to make sure that they're somewhat level either way. And now we're going to turn both pieces together to get them in place. And I gotta tell you, it's not that easy because it's a fairly tight fit. Now I'm just gonna check to see. I'm gonna have to go in. You can kind of get a feel for it. Well, I guess it's okay. So this one would be up, that one faces down. I've more or less got that in the right way. And you can see that it says 3 millimeters, which I believe is what this is. I'm just going to get the ruler just to check. So if you take a look at that, that pretty much is the 3 millimeters that they're looking for. So that one is done. It's a little finicky because you've really got to make sure they're in the right place because you don't want them bent. But you can see that with this, if we hold this that way, one is supposed to be on its side, one is facing down, which is exactly what that is. So I'll put that aside and we're going to do this very same thing with this other one. So I'm going to try and get this started. And it kind of has to be put on at the same time. Okay, so let's try spinning this together. Well, I guess that looks right. Let's just keep spinning this together. Yep, okay. Now let's do a quick measurement there. I might even be able to pull it back just a touch. So if that's facing down, we need that to be sideways. So you can see here, if this piece is facing straight down, this needs to be sideways so that it's facing up. See that? That's facing down, that's facing out. So if that's facing down, that needs to be facing up. And that looks about right. So if we do this again, there's our 3 millimeters. So technically those ones are complete, and you can see that if I do it this way, this was the right one, I think, because I think I did a test with this. Yeah, so you can see that the left one is sideways and that is facing down, the right one facing down, and that's facing sideways. But that is done. So I mean, those pieces are complete, so that's fine. So I've got those correct, but we might do some final adjustments as we go. Now, in order to put this all together, what we're going to need to do, and I think just based on how this is, I think I'm going to pop on the arms first. So if you take a look at what we put together here, I'm going to take the left one, that's going to be popped on to that one there. So let's do that. And I'm doing this from the side because I think it'll actually be easier. There we go. And then we're going to take the right one, which is now that one's going to be popping into there. Yeah, and same idea. I'm just going to pop this in from the side. Hopefully. There we go. So there we go. So those are on. So you can see that by that being on the side, that is now facing down to go onto the steering arm. That one is on the side. This is now facing down to go onto the steering arm. So it's going to look pretty much just like that when you finish that part. As you can see, do it that way. And now we're going to work on this. Now you can see there's the D8 and the D9 piece. Now for some reason you get them confused. You can see here that this one, if we look on this side, it needs to look like, well, that's that piece. You can see that depending on how you flip this over, you can see that there's the little hole for the ball connector, then this piece, and you can see the ridge. So that is for that side, that's for that side. And we've got to get the ball connectors into this. So let's use the box wrench again, and we're gonna put these in. Getting there. And again, this is going into hard plastic, so once you're at the end, you're gonna know. There we go. There's one. And we'll do the same thing with the other side. You can see we just need to match it. We know that this is the side that this is going to go in, so I'll grab the box wrench and make sure I've got that level, which you can pretty much see is. So we'll screw this in. Almost there. There we go. So that is how that is going to end up sitting. Now, you can see that these kingpins are going to go into here and then go directly into here. So, and I think when I did this before, I found that it was easier to get this, because it's just there's so many moving parts, that it's easier to let it sit on a solid surface and screw it in this way. Yeah, because you can see that's going in nice. So I'll try and hold it this way just because it's easier for you to see on camera. No, it will have to be this way. I think I discovered that before. There's not a lot of room, or I should say not a lot to hold on to when you're screwing these in. I find with these you've got to put a little bit more pressure on, otherwise the screwdriver comes out. Yeah, still a fair bit to go. but you've got to put a lot of pressure on this for this to turn. There we go. Perfect. So that is one of them, and it's in there. I mean, I've got it all the way down, and this is still nice and loose, so that's great. Now, you can see that the screw head slightly started stripping, because you've got to put a lot of pressure on this to make sure that the screwdriver doesn't pop out. So I'm going to do the next one off camera, but I'm going to be doing it the same way. My pressure is going to be on here, and I'm going to put as much downforce pressure on the screwdriver as I turn it to stop it from lifting and coming out of the screw head. So I'll do that and then we'll come back. Okay, so as you can see, I've got this one in, and because I was doing this off camera, notice that I didn't strip out the screw head. I was actually finding it difficult to do it with the camera in front because I had to put a lot more leverage on this piece in order for this to all come together. So as long as you're holding this down and making sure that the bottom piece is firm, and you put a lot of pressure on that screwdriver as you're turning it, it will go in nicely and won't pop out of the screw head. Now, I shouldn't have to take this apart, so I'm not too worried about that, but that is ultimately what it's going to look like. So once that part is done, we can now actually start putting this together onto this piece. So as you can see, the way this is going, you need to put a bearing, and if you look at the positioning of that, you want it facing like that. This is going to fit over top of there. So is this. So you've got two bearings on top of that. Then this is going to fit on underneath, just like, if I can get this on, I need to move that over a bit more. There. And you can see that on the underside, the bearings are fitting inside the plastic on the bottom side. And then on the top side, we've got two more bearings that are going to go in, just like that. So essentially this whole steering system has four bearings, two at the bottom and two at the top, which is very, very cool. Now once that's done, you can see that this is going to fit so that this center screw is going to go into the center of this. So you can see where the screw is going to go, right at the end there. So if we were to flip this over, just so you can sort of get a sense of it, these two bits here are going into those two holes there. So I'm just going to put it on this way so I can see it better. There we go, just like that. And now we've got the one MA3 screw that's going to go into this part. Now this is hard plastic, so once we're at the end, you're going to know. There we go. So there is our rack essentially. And you can see that on the other side, you can see those bearings are nicely in place. So this actually makes for a very smooth steering system. I quite like it. So that is it for step 34. So we can now work on step 35, and now we're going to work on the rear body mount unit.